You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Like I said, we went from 19 to 17.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before I do that, I just want to remind everybody, if you have one of these type of microphones, make sure the power is on when you're speaking. If you're using the handheld ones, you don't need to use this, but make sure that handheld is on so we can hear everybody. The RTM will be convened in person for a special meeting on Monday, November 29th, 2021 at 8 p.m. at Fire Headquarters, 45 North Main Street, Branford, Connecticut, to act upon the following matters. Will everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, item 1, roll call.
Okay, Representative Amore? Absent. Representative Alphone?
Here.
Representative Anderson?
Here.
Representative Barron?
Here.
Representative Black?
Here.
Representative Bonenberger?
Here.
Representative Brooks?
Present.
Representative Conklin?
Here.
Representative Everson?
Here.
Representative Erlanger?
Here.
Representative Flanagan?
Present.
Representative Greenberg?
Here.
Representative Healy?
Present.
Representative Henschel?
Present.
Representative Hines?
Here.
Representative Ingraham?
Here.
Representative Kelly?
Here.
Representative Leach is present. Representative Maresca?
Here.
Representative Preet?
Here.
Representative Ricchio? Absent. Representative Shrestha, I believe, is on Zoom. Okay. Representative Sires? Representative Stepanik? Representative Sullivan, I believe, is on Zoom.
Yes. Yep.
Representative Torelli? Absent. Representative Toohill?
Here.
Representative Verderam?
Here.
Representative Witowski?
Here.
And Representative Wells? Absent. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 members absent, 2 on Zoom.
So we have a quorum. Okay.
Yes.
Moving on to item 2, to consider and if appropriate. approve
Sorry,
an-
excuse me. I forgot ex officios. So we have First Selectman Cosgrove, and we have Town Clerk Arpin.
Arpin.
And do I have anyone else here? No.
No.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Okay. Moving on to item 2, to consider and if appropriate, approve an agreement by and between the town of Branford and the Teamsters Local 443 Public Works Highway employees to June 30th, 2023. Representative Conklin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Public Services Committee heard a presentation on this contract at a special meeting held on November 18th, presented by our HR Director. And if I may, I did not bring the 51 pages to read you, so I'll just give you a couple of the highlights that are most important. This contract covers 4 years. It is retroactive to July 1 of 2019 and covers till June 30th of 2023. In the interim from the last contract, the union initiated a request the employees initiated a request to change unions, and that delayed even the beginning of negotiations. The approval was given by the state in November of 2019. The union approved the contract before us on October 28th. A couple of the highlights is that the contract initially went to mediation. That once the union and the town had all their agreements that they could, they went to mediation and finished the negotiations, which were approved on 10/28. The most important part for us and the town of Branford, the residents of Branford, is that in the 4 years, the increase in pay will be 2.5% for the first and the second year, 2% for year 3, and 2.25% in year 4. The union will pick up 12% of the cost of medical as opposed to the current 10%. There was wording changed slightly to reflect what's really happening with the union anyway. So again, those were agreed to make the changes in the contract. Again, we heard this on the 28th, and it passed in committee by a vote of 6-0, and I put that in the form of a motion for this body to approve. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to approve the contract. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Erlanger?
Question. Representative Conklin, do we have any idea what the financial liability is for the 2 years of retroactive pay for those employees?
In dollars?
Yeah.
I don't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Anyone?
That'll come before the body, after the approval of this, then we'll come through with the transfer.
Okay.
It would be a transfer from
Transfer will come
contingency.
as to go to Board of Finance with this body.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Anyone else from the RTM? Any discussion from members of the RTM? Any discussion from members of the public? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote. A yes vote is for the contract, a no vote is against.
Okay, Representative Alphone? Yes. Representative Anderson?
Yes.
Representative Barron? Representative Black?
Representative Black votes yes.
Representative Bonenberger?
Yes.
Representative Brooks?
Representative Brooks votes yes.
Representative Conklin?
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson?
Yes.
Representative Erlanger?
Representative Erlanger votes yes.
Representative Greenberg?
Yes.
Representative Healy?
Representative Healy votes yes.
Representative Henschel?
Representative Henschel votes yes.
Representative Hines?
Yes.
Representative Ingraham?
Yes.
Representative Kelly?
Yes.
Representative Leach votes yes. Representative Maresca?
Yes.
Representative Preet?
Yes.
Representative Shrestha?
Shrestha votes yes.
There we go.
Thank you. Representative Sires?
Yes.
Representative Stepanik?
Votes yes.
Representative Sullivan?
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Toohill?
Yes.
Representative Verderam?
Yes.
Representative Witkowski?
Yes.
Okay, we have 24 yes votes and 1 abstain.
Okay. The contract has been approved. Moving on to item 3, to consider and if appropriate, approve a contract between the BOE and the BAO, Branford Administrators Organization contract from July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. Representative Preet.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Education Subcommittee held a special meeting on November 22nd to hear details of this contract. A quorum was reached, and at that time, I basically turned the meeting over to the superintendent, who proceeded to give us a very thorough and detailed explanation of the contract, how it was negotiated, and the focus of the contract included. And I know the superintendent's in the audience, so I ask him to keep me honest with my notes. The contract, as you just said, is for 3 years. It runs from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2025. The contract was settled in mediation. However, there was not a mediator. They mediated between the two parties themselves. There was a Board of Finance member as part of the negotiation team. The contract calls for a 2.25% wage increase each year, and that'll total 6.75% over the 3 years. That settlement is under the state average by about 1%. There's a one-time annuity contribution of $500 for each bargaining unit member. The employee health premium cost share contribution increases each year by 0.5%, starting at 19%, ending at 20.5%. There was no new language added to the contract. However, there was some language cleanup. I guess there were some parts of the contract that just needed some clarification. An athletic director was added, and the dean of students position was repurposed to an administrator for emotional and social learning. They removed the adult education administrator. Our administration total is going from 18 administrators to 16. However, there is a plan to replace 1, so we may be back to 17. The total costs for the contract, not the increase, but the total cost of the contract for 22-23 is $2.4 million. For 2023-2024 is $2.46 million. And for 24-25 is approximately $2.5 million. There was quite a lively discussion after the superintendent gave his presentation. There was some very detailed questions and answers by the superintendent and also by the chief operating officer, Mr. Neal. And the vote was 7-0 to approve the contract and recommend it to the full RTM for approval, and I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion on the floor to approve this contract. Is there any discussion from members of the RTM? Representative Henschel?
Yes, Representative Preet, if you could just clarify if the member from the Board of Finance was an observer or a member of the negotiating party?
I will answer, but I'll defer to the superintendent if I'm wrong. I believe he is part of the negotiation team.
That is correct. By statute, it's a member of the negotiation team in an advisory role.
My understanding, Representative Henschel, is there's a Teacher Negotiation Act that requires a member of the Board of Finance to be part of that negotiation.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the RTM? Representative Brooks, we'll do you first. Go ahead, Representative Brooks.
Just a point of clarification on the Teachers Act thing you just said. Is it a requirement that it be an individual from the Board of Finance and or a legislative person? And is it limited to a one or the other?
I don't know the law specifically, but my understanding, and again, I'll defer to the superintendent if I'm wrong, my understanding is it specifically states a member of the Board of Finance. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't have this, I don't know if
TV can't.
The Teacher Negotiation Act I do not have it in front of me, but it specifically states for those municipalities that have a Board of Finance, because not all municipalities have a Board of Finance, and those that do, such as Branford, that it is one representative from the Board of Finance. In other municipalities that have an RTM and no Board of Finance, it is one member from that particular body. In this case, it would be a Board of Finance, and that's what we have done historically, and it is limited to one in an advisory role.
Representative Healy?
Thanks, Eddie. Representative Healy, 7th District. We spoke a little earlier. I understand our role here in the RTM is to look at this contract, face value, and is this a fair contract? The answer is yes. This is a fair contract. I also understand the implications of voting no, voting against this contract, and what it could ultimately cost the town. But what are we getting for that? When people in general, real estate agents, whatnot, talk about new families moving to this town, moving to a town, they talk about the education system, and how fair it is. Branford doesn't come up in those communications that I stand with. It's always Daniel Hand, Guilford, even HK, other districts doing better. So I'm going to abstain tonight. I have a hard time just rubber stamping another contract. Our constituents, again, they don't know that our hands are tied with this. We can vote no, but it will be seen as such, and it's a fair contract. It truly is. But I'd like to see our new Board of Ed get a little bit more involved in the education to see that Branford strives to be better than mediocre, because that's where we've been. Right there, state average, year after year after year. And I want to hear, I'm so proud of Branford, but I want to start hearing that Branford is thought of as the town of education for the children. And it's not. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this? Representative Everson?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. When we discussed the teacher's contract earlier this year, there was some discussion about having a representative from the RTM also be involved in contract negotiations, so that when a contract like this came before the RTM, we would have a better understanding of how the soup got made, essentially. How do we come to these numbers? You know, what does this mean? Because often, as Representative Healy pointed out, we do not have a lot of the details of what went on in negotiations, because that's negotiations. This state statute that is cited, it's my understanding in the past there has been a member of the RTM that has been involved in as an observer of these discussions. I think it would benefit the town to have that occur again, so that this body is more informed about contract specifics, instead of just being given, here's the contract, you can ask questions, but if you turn it down and it goes to mediation or binding arbitration, it's going to cost the town more money, most likely, because of our financial position and how salaries are determined. So I would like to see in the future that either being discussed with the administration, perhaps the Republican majority would be involved in that, because I think it would benefit this body to have further details, especially next year when we're going to have police and fire and some other major contracts coming before this body. Thank you.
Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Representative Ingraham?
Thank you. I'm going to agree with what's been said about the RTM representation on this, on these negotiations. After speaking to many of you over the last few months and even after the teacher's contract, that's an agreement cross-party lines. It's an agreement of this body that they want to have someone involved. The last time that it happened, it was very easy to sit down, talk about the negotiations after the negotiations. The people were very good about not speaking about them or going away if we were having coffee and talking about something, realizing that they might be involved. It really helps this type of body. It's an elected body. We're put here by the people, and we should have at least, and again, it's not a voting rule there. It's really to come back with information, and it really does help this body to have one of our own there. Thank you.
Anyone else? Representative Toohill?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I was curious about this contract over the years and what the agreements have been. So I went to the town hall in the vault, and I was in there looking at the old paperwork and RTM materials, and I was very kindly assisted by our town clerk, Lisa Arpin. She knew where everything was in that vault, and she was able to get all the records for me very quickly. So thank you very much. So anyway, I just went through it all, and I'm going to start with the contract that was approved in '06. This was a contract for 4 years, and it was turned down by the RTM. The proposal was 1.125% per year, but the RTM turned it down. The vote was 20-7. That was from that was from '06 to '10, a 4-year agreement. Then after that, there was a 3-year contract for 2010 to 2013. Also went to binding arbitration. It was rejected by the RTM 15-6. And that was for 1.67% increase per year. That went to arbitration, and they were supposed to get a 1% raise the first year of that 3-year contract, 2010 to 11. It was supposed to be 1%. It went to arbitration, and they agreed to a 0% increase for that 1 year. And that was probably, it was about $15,000 cheaper. Then there was a contract for 4 years, 2013 to 2017, 1.95 average increase per year. That went to binding arbitration, and the vote was 20-6. Then there was a contract for 4 years, which was approved 27-0, and that was for 2.5% every year. That was from July 2017 to June of 2021. Currently, the contract that we have right now is a 1-year, 1% increase, and that was approved by the RTM. So I just wanted to give you all, some of the history of this particular contract at the RTM. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Toole. Anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak to this item? Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Mr. Droman? Will you give him the mic, please? Mr. Droman, if your comments on this is just strictly to the administrator's contract and only the administrator's contract.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Well, first of all, and certainly I will limit everything to the administrator's contract. First of all, with regard to the whole notion of what was being discussed last, which was having some RTM presence more on the front end of negotiating these kinds of contracts, I'd like to take this opportunity to kind of refresh everybody's memory from the last contract where I believe it was the teacher's contract. It got passed by 1 or 2 votes. And that was a very big concern back then about, okay, well, why are we hearing about it at the 11th hour? And then the whole notion of, oh, geez, if we vote no, it's going to go to arbitration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That was the same thing. And here we are in the same position on a different contract 9 months later. So I'd like to echo the sentiments of others that have also expressed this concern because it's real, it's factual, and it has a track record, whether you like the message or the messenger or not. Moreover, on that same point regarding this contract, I had the privilege of sitting down with the chair of the RTM Education Committee early this year, and you know, in a sentence or less, there wasn't much that we agreed on. Perhaps the one thing that we agreed most on was that what had happened with no RTM representation, more on the front end, was never going to happen again. It was expressed to me that it was wrong, and there was no upside in doing it that way, and it was going to change, and it didn't. With regard to the contract, you know, I think sometimes we ask ourselves the wrong question. And sometimes when you ask yourself the wrong question, you get the right answer. In terms of, you get the wrong answer, I'm sorry, by definition. You know, the contract is reasonable. I think when looking at it in a vacuum, this contract is extremely reasonable, especially given recent circumstances, and especially with no disrespect to the superintendent or district leadership, you know, working in an environment that is challenging and toxic and turnover-ridden. You know, in the executive search industry, we call it combat pay, and it doesn't have anything to do with the armed services. It just has to do with an environment that is particularly challenging. So, you know, you add it all up, and it's very reasonable to say yes. But the bigger picture, when one steps back, is what are we investing in? And, you know, by continuing to say yes and invest, it just basically enables the status quo. You know, in the last, the meeting last week, a week ago, the superintendent was asked about different surveys that come out about, you know, about the board of, you know, about the district. And he said, well, I don't, you know, and I'm paraphrasing here for brevity, but, you know, hey, I don't put much stock in it because it's very subjective. Well, you know, the folks that do it are Niche, NICHE, and US News and World Report, and what's interesting is when one looks at all of the different subsets of how they rate the various districts in the state of Connecticut, the part of our district that always has the lowest grade is administration. That's just a fact. And again, you don't have to like the message, you don't have to like the messenger, but these are the facts. And you know, what I see is, you know, look, there's no getting around the fact that you can't look at the Board of Ed, and I'm mindful of the chairman of the Board of Ed being here. In terms of history, there's no getting around the fact that the Board of Ed has more direct authority for this, and there's no getting around the fact that you can look back at Board of Ed performance and it has not exceeded expectations. There's no getting around that. On the other hand, you all have a role here, albeit not a direct role, but you all have the ability to vote based on what you have in front of you. And if it means it goes back to arbitration, if it means this, if it means that, well, you know something? Then do it. If we're so worried about, oh my God, if we cut some budget, what is the superintendent going to do? Is he going to twist things in a manner that's going to create problems? Well, you know something? If that's the thought process, then deal with the essential problem. That's not a ringing endorsement of a sitting superintendent. And folks, what I'm saying in closing is, you know, you can look at this contract in a vacuum and say, hey, it's reasonable. There's a lot of craziness. There's pandemic. There's COVID. Blah, 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 blah. You know, you could look at different reviews of our district leadership, and Mr. Hernandez says, well, some of these are subjective. Well, recently, there was, via the district's own poll, a 15% favorability rating from certified and non-certified staff to district leadership. 15%. So you know something? He's right. Some of those numbers that give administration a C-, where Mr. Hernandez says, okay, hey, these are subjective numbers, he's right. They're too high, okay? 15%. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, when you're voting, and you know, again, I'm conscious of the fact that this has already been hashed and rehashed behind the scenes, and it's all done, and it's going to pass with flying colors. Mr. Healy, thank you very much for standing up and stating the truth. But, you know, folks, when you look at, you know, when you peel the onion a little bit and you look at the big picture here, what you all are doing by voting yes is enabling and emboldening something that's highly problematic and has been so for a while. And if you want to change it, then change it. And if you don't want to change it, then simply say, hey, we're okay with that. And, you know, and then let it be. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Thanksgiving.
Anyone else from the public? Anybody else from the RTM? Representative Preet.
I'm sorry, I don't want to go into a vote with those last comments being the last thing we heard. A number of us are concerned with the process. In full disclosure, I met with the superintendent maybe a week and a half ago, and expressed my concerns with the process. I understand there's a law in place. I think we can follow the spirit of the law without necessarily following the letter of the law. What I've heard tonight is that there's more people on this body that are concerned with the process. And it sounds, by Representative Everson's comments, it's a bipartisan concern. We have a 3-year contract. I don't know if I'll be here in 3 years, but we have 3 years to address the process. So let's not wait till May of 2025, but we can start now addressing the process. And what can we do to get more involved? I had conversations with Representative Hines over the past week. We had a couple of ideas that, you know, at some point we'll share, but I would love to hear from anybody. What do you think we can do? If we can't have a representative sitting at the table, there could be other things that we might be able to do. So we've got 3 years to fix it. We've got 30 people, all intelligent people. So let's fix it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak? Representative Henschel?
Yeah, just clarifying what I think, I need to reread the state legislation on this, but my guess is if we look at it carefully, it says that somebody from the Board of Finance shall be part of the negotiating team, but I don't think that it says that others cannot be part of the observer in the representative process. So I don't think that, my guess is that we won't find anything that would exclude being asked to come to the table and participate as an observer. And I think we ought to look into that possibility.
Okay, anyone else from the RTM wishing to speak? If not, this will be a roll call vote. A yes vote is in favor of the administrator's contract, a no vote is against.
Okay. Representative Alphone?
Representative Alphone, yes.
Representative Anderson?
Representative Anderson says yes.
Representative Black?
Representative Black votes yes.
Representative Barron, sorry. Abstain, okay. Representative Bonenberger?
Representative Bonenberger votes yes.
Representative Brooks?
Representative Brooks votes yes.
Representative Conklin?
Representative Conklin votes yes.
Representative Everson?
Representative Everson votes yes.
Representative Erlanger?
Representative Erlanger, yes.
Representative Greenberg?
Yes.
I believe Representative Healy abstain?
Correct.
Correct. Representative Henschel?
Abstain.
Representative Hines?
Yes.
Representative Ingraham?
Yes.
Representative Kelly?
Abstain.
Representative Leach is going to abstain. Representative Maresca?
Yes.
Representative Preet?
Yes.
Representative Shrestha?
Shrestha votes yes.
Representative Sires?
Yes.
Representative Stepanik?
I abstain.
Representative Sullivan?
Representative Sullivan votes yes.
Representative Torelli? Oh, sorry, she's absent. Representative Toohill?
Yes.
Representative Verderam?
Yes.
Representative Witkowski?
Abstain.
Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 abstain. 18 yes. If I did that right. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yep, that's right. 18 yes.
18 yes,
abstain.
and how many abstentions?
8.
8. Okay, the contract has been approved. Before we move on to item 4, just a couple things I would like to tell everybody, so I'm sure the town clerk has already sent it out. There will not be a RTM meeting on December 8th. It's been canceled. And I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I hope you see everybody back here next year. Item number 4, adjournment. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn?
We already get a second. I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? Representative Ingraham and
Good night, guys.
all those in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.